I may have been one of the most accepting old schoolers around when Sony and even Microsoft entered the console gaming business. I've invested a lot of time and money over the years into PlayStation and Xbox products with no real regrets, and there's no denying that both have contributed to some of my best gaming memories in that time, with the exception of some circling of the wagons around the time Microsoft declared their intentions of joining the game industry, which I've talked about in a previous video. I've pretty consistently dismissed fears about their intentions for getting into this market as needlessly fatalistic and even paranoid. However, right now, in the year 2023, with the platforms we have on the market at this moment, I really feel like Sony and Microsoft are on course to ruin the console business, or at least any part of it they can directly influence. This is Little Akiba Games, I'm Patrick, welcome back to the shop. I can't speak for any of you, but my PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X are very much on notice. I've talked before on this channel about how both systems are struggling to carve out identities for themselves to make a compelling case for owning them, as there's next to no exclusive game catalogs between them to make me feel justified in owning either system. The concept of game ownership gets diminished more on their platforms every year, as the companies lean more and more toward overpriced subscription models as the primary means of accessing games, and codes in a box are looking to become a more common practice, if Alan Wake 2 and Starfield are any indication. We're even poised to lose Best Buy and Walmart as places to get our video games sometime next year by all indications. Now, that's something I have a lot of questions about in and of itself, but that would have to be another video entirely. I've already let my Game Pass expire, and the only ripple made by that is that I'll have to find a physical copy of Grid 2019 somewhere, as I got somewhat invested in that game. I also responded to the recent wave of PlayStation Plus price hikes by canceling my auto-renewal on it, although it will be a little while yet before that comes to bear because I had some heavily discounted subscription cards stacked up. After all, I'm a firm believer in voting with your dollar. If a game company does something you don't like, withhold your money over it and put it toward encouraging the behavior you want to see from them. In contrast, I've already talked about my reasons for loving the Nintendo Switch as a platform. While Nintendo as a company is, as I've previously noted, pretty detestable, the Switch itself is everything I want to encourage platform holders to give us. Compact, cartridge-based, largely unreliant on online services, with a steady torrent of games you can't pick up anywhere else. You can buy games for the Nintendo Switch with confidence that you'll be coming back to them years or even decades later. Many of them are exclusive to the platform, and the odds are that you'll be able to buy the vast majority of them physically. The only moving part that can go wrong is a very replaceable system fan. There will never be any concerns about burned out disk drive motors or the like. This makes me take a long look at the larger consoles in my gaming rig. As I'm already preparing to decommission a couple of them, like my PlayStation 3 and possibly my Xbox 360, it's very eye-opening to weigh the space these machines take up against what they actually bring to my entertainment center. Now, the PlayStation 5 is my Final Fantasy XIV and Gran Turismo 7 box, but there's no real reason it can't give way to my PC and PS4 Pro respectively for those purposes. It's still safe for the time being, as my exploration of the Final Fantasy VII remakes is still in my plans, but once I'm done with that, one way or another, I'm really not sure. Maybe by then, E3, or whatever is supposed to do E3's job for it at this point, will have come and gone, and Sony will have restocked the pipeline with exclusives better suited to satisfy a broader range of gamers, but I have no reason to be so optimistic. The Xbox Series X is in a much more dire situation. I have a good gaming PC, so the Series X's 9th gen library has absolutely zero exclusives to speak of in order to justify its presence. I play Killer Instinct and Forza Motorsport over on PC these days. It does serve a purpose in giving me a means to play games from Microsoft's meager but not insignificant backward compatibility list, but I also have a much smaller console that does the same job just as well. It's called the Xbox One X. How we're 3 years into the Xbox Series lifecycle and there's still not one game that tells me that this is why I own a Series X is completely inexcusable. This console could very well be doomed to storage, at least for a couple years. It really feels like a day can't go by anymore without ownership of digital goods being undermined, most recently by PlayStation owners losing access to a list of movies that were bought and paid for simply because a contract expired between Sony and Discovery, with no compensation at all to those who are taking an unmitigated L on their investment. Let's not sugarcoat it. If it happened in this case, it can happen in any case. It really begs the question, how many games are out there that are subject to similar contracts? And when is the other shoe going to come down? The best quote I've heard about this whole debacle sums up the overall sentiments I've seen from PlayStation account holders altogether. If buying is not owning, piracy is not stealing, which we should be screaming from the rooftops until the entire game industry gets the message. This absolute mess is waking people up to all the consumer rights they've given up to digital storefronts. And as pissed off as people are about it, Sony has stepped on a hornet's nest that they and much of the industry will rightfully pay dearly for over time. I firmly believe that. Just barely over a year ago, I talked about the inevitable move toward a digital marketplace and its likely ramifications, and particularly how it could go in a direction that is largely collaborative in nature with the industry and its customers, or something of a much more adversarial variety. I'm afraid with this, we've moved decisively in the latter direction. I'm over a month into owning my PC Engine Core Graphics 2 and my Super Famicom at this point, and I'm honestly ready to drop $140 or so on a scaler and welcome them into my entertainment center from the makeshift CRT rig I've set up right next to it. Most likely with the space opened up by the removal of multiple, more modern consoles. I have zero anxiety about servers going down and losing access to games I have purchased. I have zero concerns about necessary update patches making my physical copies worthless once access to those updates is cut off. And if a system has a malfunction, like a faulty capacitor, it can be serviced or even outright replaced with no data or game access lost whatsoever. Once the hardware and software are in my possession, the platform holders themselves have no control over the fate of my investment in it. That's how it should be. I knew that despite the money and labor investment in making my recent retro import gaming content, I was going to have a good time with it. What I wasn't expecting was that it would completely redefine my discontent with the modern gaming industry, to the point where I now realize that the vast majority of it simply isn't worthy of my hard-earned money. I only intended for this retro gaming bit to be a refresher course to get me to the point of speaking with more authority on the subject for this channel, and have a little bit of fun buying up games I always dreamed of having as a kid. But it's really opened my eyes to the fact that there's this whole other corner of the game industry that is very much alive and well, much more in tune with what I really want to play, and frankly, much more deserving of my investment. Now, I honestly don't like to be this dismal or pessimistic in my videos, but this has really been an experience. And I don't believe that any problem in the history of humanity, let alone the gaming industry in a vacuum, has ever been solved by shutting up about it. So I'm taking the opportunity to vent it out here. What say you? As costs go up and content ownership becomes increasingly questionable, are you looking elsewhere for your gaming fix, or is the current content stream on PlayStation and Xbox keeping you satisfied? Let me know down in the comments, and let's get a conversation going on the subject. If you're here, it's probably because you're at least a little bit like-minded, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. That's all for now. If you like this video, then as always, please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let YouTube know that we've got a good thing going on over here. Click the notification bell to know right away when the next video is up. I look forward to seeing you back here next time at Little Akiba Games.